following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month.
Hello everyone, this is Andrew from We Have Till 5. I just want to take a second to thank each and every person who's ever listened to or pretended to listen to or downloaded just because I begged them to. Anyone who's listened to an episode of We Have Till 5, thank you so much. I can't believe it's been 100 episodes already. I'm currently in the busiest, most crazy season of my life, and it hurts me to say that I'm not on this episode. I'm so sorry, but I could not miss an opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you. You know, when I started this podcast with Matt Sukram, 99 episodes before the one that you're listening to now, I would never have dreamed that we were going to make it to 100 and that I would be given such a great spot to excel here on WrestleMedia. And I've grown as a podcaster. I've grown as a broadcaster. I'm so grateful and thankful for the time that such great professionals as Matt Sukram and Adam Conta and Drew Ferris have given to me, the opportunity that they've given me to just talk about wrestling and just be in love with the sport. Who would have thought that when Matt Sukram and I had started this podcast in his living room, we were the second network show. We were the second one. It was the Wrestling Show Network at that point, and it wasn't even a network yet. It just was Adam and Matt riffing on the Wrestling Show, as they still do every single week here on WrestleMedia. But I had begged Matt and Adam to let me be on the show. The idea of doing a podcast was so romantic to me, and to do it about something that I love so much, like professional wrestling, it was a dream come true. And the bottom line was, at the time, they were stuck to their 30-minute format, and really there just wasn't room for a third guy in the show. They didn't need a guest. They didn't need somebody like me to just sort of pop my head in and, give my 2 cents. But the opportunity came up for me to start my own show. And I could not have done that without Matt. There's a reason why Drew is doing the solo episode this week and not myself. It's not my forte. I by no means am a trained professional at this. I'm barely good at it with a partner. And Matt, Adam, and Drew have just make me look good every single week. And Jeff, for that matter, on Forging the Future. So, I never would have thought that when we started, doing Best WrestleManias way back when, that it would turn into this 100 episode ordeal. I lived through a season of Matt Sukram and I, and then the new future of Adam and I, and we went on a great run, and we had some great episodes, and I learned a lot from Adam. And then Drew took over, and you're listening to the fruits of that, I guess. Just nonsense. I'm kidding. It's been a great learning experience. I've learned more about sound. I've learned more about everything. Anyways, this is just my long-winded way of actually appearing on the 100th episode of We Have Till 5. I'm so proud of this podcast. I'm so thankful for this podcast. I'm grateful to Jesus, my Lord and Savior, for this podcast. I know I don't want to use this as a soapbox or anything, but I cannot live with myself if I refuse to give credit to my Lord. I'm just so grateful for the opportunity. And here's to 100 more. Here's to 500 more. Here is to the success of WrestleMedia as we move forward into a huge, huge, huge summer. Come join us at Chinlock. God, I'm so grateful. Thank you, the listener, the Patreon, the everything, for every minute that you've spent on this podcast and on me. Thank you for your investment in me as a person. And keep listening. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Welcome to We Have Till 5, part of the WrestleMedia Network. It's Ferris. And that's it. Oh, boy. For episode 100, which started with Andrew and Adam Kent, We wrap up 100 episodes with this guy. What had happened? Let me see if I can explain this without insulting anybody, specifically Kent. So he got a job, a good job, a 9-to-5, Monday to Friday job, which is, I think, everybody's goal in life at this point in our economic history. The only problem, really, right now, is we used to record in the afternoons. Yours truly goes to work at 5 in the morning and then leaves at 12 o'clock. So then, afternoon recordings just kind of work best. But now he works till like 5 or 7 o'clock, and it's a rather hard thing to coordinate. So for episode 100, the only way we could really figure this out is to, just have me do it solo at work, technically. Now, if any of my coworkers, any of my bosses, more importantly, are listening to this, this is before my show even starts. I woke up even earlier than normal, and then I drove on down to work, and using professional-grade microphones, I recording we have till 5. In case you don't know, I work as a morning show host for a radio station. We actually just, no word of a lie, we had a state of emergency the other day, and a lot of my morning is probably going to be seeing if there are any updates, seeing if there are any damages, what people need to know. But for the time being, let's go to professional wrestling. It is episode 100 of We Have Till 5. I've listened to about 5 of them. But does that make me sound bad? Here's something I want to clear up about my personal opinion of We Have Till 5 and why I don't listen to a lot of the WrestleMedia network. I am far too critical of everything. And I don't want to sit down and listen to something and then just hammer it in that you need to be better or you need to improve or this is garbage. Does that make sense? Do I sound like an a-hole? I'm probably an a-hole. The more I talk and the more I give my honest opinion, the more it just kind of seems, then why are you doing it? You know why? Because it's fun. It's fun and it's a challenge. Challenge coming up with different lists, trying to be as creative as possible. Because I don't know if I've ever told you this, whether it be on We Have Till 5 or Ropes to Reels, but I have a legitimate fear of losing my creativity. I can't remember who said it, but when growing up, there was somebody in my life that said, keep in mind, creativity is finite. You are going to run out at some point. When you get to a certain point in your age, you're not going to come up with new ideas. You're going to rehash old ones and kind of give them a new twist. And granted, a lot of ideas come from reworking older ones. Like WrestleMedia, while an incredible achievement, in my opinion, for our... Do we call him CEO? I'm going to call him CEO. From our CEO, Adam, it's a grand achievement that he's done, having a show a day, for crying out loud, all dedicated to wrestling. It's not an original idea, right? Having a daily show or a network where each show is a different, how do I put it? Different format, different idea. But it's unique as in he's taken some of the best ideas or the ideas that he's enjoyed and kind of incorporated them into, different avenues and having some of his friends and colleagues help him out with it. But fast forward 40 years down the line, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep doing that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep doing that. And that honestly terrifies me a little bit. So while I have this challenge of keeping my creative juices flowing, I'd like to come up with ideas for We Have Till 5. And for episode 100, I'm kind of happy with this one. This is no particular order, by the way. This is not a top 5 list. This is just a list of 5 100 champions. I went through the history of 5 different titles in the WWE, and I discovered who was the 100th champion and the context of how they became champion, plus a little bit of history sprinkled in there about the championship itself. So here are the titles that we are going to be going through for this episode. This is the women's title, the United States Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, the tag team belts, and of course, World Heavyweight. You know why I chose those 5? Because those are the 5 with 100 champions. Well, granted, there's also the hardcore championship, but do you remember back in the 90s where you could just challenge for that title anytime and it kind of hopped around to person to person to person? It wasn't really interesting, the 100th champion. I believe it was either Mick Foley or Crash Holly. I think it was Mankind, the more I look back and think about it. But of course, it's just not interesting. Yeah, it was part of a scramble and he was there. I think he only won it for about 5 seconds before it was taken over in the match again. So the 100th hardcore champion isn't really interesting. But there was something interesting about these 5 championships that I hope you enjoy as well. We're kind of making a game out of it. I'm going to tell you the match. I'm not going to tell you who is champion going into the match because obviously they would have lost the championship for the other person to be the 100th. But I think this will be fun. So thank you so much for joining us for the 100th episode of We Have Till 5. I said us, but I'm still not completely over the fact that the 100th episode is just including me. Oh, I kind of painted Kent as the villain here. No, this is also like, let me a little more context into why I had to do it solo. So my girlfriend is a wonderful woman. She had purchased me tickets to a show last night that I didn't know about. And she just sprung it on me like, oh, we're going to go see a show tonight. Hey, surprise. And the thing is, I hadn't told her that Kent doesn't do afternoons anymore. So when we went through the evening, I went, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not going to say no to this woman who went out of her way to get tickets to a show that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a magic show, and I love live magic. But anyways, enough making excuses, enough of that nonsense. We are going to go into the top 100 champions in WWE history, starting off with the women's title, which was first won by Fabulous Moolah. Or is it Fabulous Moolah or the Fabulous Moolah? You can tell I did a lot of research for this. But no, she was actually the first champion, and she held it for 3,651 days. Thing is, it was then known as the NWA World Women's Championship, and then it kind of, as you very well know, changed around a lot, had different names and different, what's the best way to call it? Different costumes? Is that a fair thing to call it? See, here's the thing. In 2008, well, it became the women's title, right, in WWE. And then Alundra Blaze stole it and then burned it on WCW, and they made women's title. It was a whole thing. And in 2008, the women's title became exclusive to Raw, and then SmackDown had the Divas title. And I kind of combined those into one because otherwise it wouldn't have made 100, right? Here's the fun thing about what you're going to be surprised on who the 100th women's champion is, I promise you. So in 2008, it was the women's title on Raw and the Divas title on SmackDown. Now, the last women's champion was Lita, and then the last Divas champion was Charlotte. It was Lita at 59, and then Charlotte at 85. So think about that. When it became the women's championship at WrestleMania, there wasn't even 100 champions yet. So then, after SmackDown had their women's champion and Raw had their women's champion, I compiled the notes and the numbers. Do you know who the 100th champion was? Well, I'll give you a hint. She performed at WrestleMania this past year. It was Ronda Rousey. So in that triple threat match, when Charlotte won the women's title on SmackDown, that was the 101. But it was Ronda Rousey who was the 100th champion, and then Becky became 102nd at the end of WrestleMania. And I think that's really surprising, right? That it took until this year for there to be 100 different reigns. Oh, and this is including doubling up as well. Like with Trish Stratus's 9 title reigns, that's 9 in the entire thing. It's just baffling to me that it took this long. I guess when Fabulous Moolah had over 3,000, then it does make a little bit of sense why there wasn't too much on the women's title jumping about.
Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today.
But let's go now to number 4, the Tag Team Championship, which was first Luke Graham and Tarzan Tyler back in 1971. And this was back when it was still house shows. Wrestling wasn't put on TV. TV came in 1978, and it wasn't Luke and Tarzan anymore. The champions, the first televised tag team champions, were Tony Guerra? G-A-R-E-A. I think it's Guerra. And Larry Zbyszko. They were the first televised TV champion, or first televised tag team champions. And I think their reign was the 8th reign total at that point. Now, as you probably know, who has the longest tag team title reign? That they just won't shut up about it. Well, because it's very recent, and I get that. It's New Day for 483 days as tag team champions. And that's consistently. I think the total number is still Demolition, like total in career-wise, but single reign is absolutely the New Day. So we were back in the 70s with the first tag team champion, and we fast forward to 2000. The 100th tag team champions were found in the year 2000. It was the New Age Outlaws versus the Dudley Boys. So which one of those tag teams you think was the 100th champion? If you guessed the ECW Extremists, you are correct. It was Devon and Bubba Ray Dudley. They were the 100th champions until WrestleMania 2000. Now, what was the match? I think I'm going to have to look this one up. What was the match? I spelt that terribly wrong. So WrestleMania 2000. I'm on Wikipedia just to see who. I think they were facing off against, if I'm not mistaken, Edge and Christian. Was this a TLC match? Let's see. Main event matches. Tag team. Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, Dudley Boys. Ladder match. It was a triangle ladder match. Okay. So it wasn't TLC, because I couldn't remember what WrestleMania that was, but it was a ladder match. And I think it was Edge and Christian that walked out from that one. Yep. Edge and Christian became the 101 tag team champions, but the honor, and forever will be, the Dudley Boys. So that one's pretty interesting, I think. Let's move on to what's the best thing to call these titles? I think in WrestleMedia, everybody calls them the working titles, the workers' titles. These are the ones, the Intercontinental and the U.S. Championship. Now, the U.S. title has an interesting history. So the first champion, as you may well know, was Harley Race back in 1975. At that time was the NWA, United States Heavyweight Championship. Now, do you know what the longest reign for the United States title was? It was 523 days, and the honor goes to Lex Luger. That one's not as surprising, is it? The man, when he had a count-out victory against Yokozuna, they had this American flag waving around. His tights were the flag. They were really pushing him as the American hero, so it's not really that surprising, is it? Though I am a little shocked it's only 523 days. You'd think with like a United States Championship, they'd keep it on an American boy for 2 years, especially when you look at Fabulous Moolah or Demolition. But you know what? Regardless, that one just surprised me. Now, the 100th champion was decided on a SmackDown. It was SmackDown in 2004. And this one's going to be a little more interesting. So this one was vacated. The title was originally John Cena's, but then he was in an angle with general manager Kurt Angle, and he hit him. I think this was when Kurt had his injury and he was on the wheelchair. So John Cena hit Kurt Angle. He said, "You are stripped of the United States Championship." So then it was an 8-way elimination match featuring John Cena, Booker T, Rene Dupree, Kenzo Suzuki, Rob Van Dam, Billy Gunn, Charlie Haas, and Luther Reigns. I have no idea who Luther Reigns is. Let me look it up. I'm going to look that one up as well. Let's see if his face will bring back any memories. Because I was watching SmackDown at this time, so no, but man, he was a beast. Oh, that man's a brick house. Good on him. Honestly, it's better than anything I could do, but that is a human specimen. Anyways, all right, so this 8-way elimination match. Out of all those, Luther Reigns, Charlie Haas, Billy Gunn, Rob Van Dam, Kenzo Suzuki, Rene Dupree, Booker T, John Cena. Who do you think was the 100th United States champion? If you said John Cena, you're incorrect. It was Booker T. Actually, I don't know if it's still... I don't know how many people remember this, but there was a match between Booker T and Chris Benoit where Chris Benoit did a suicide dive and his back nailed the corner of the announce table. It was actually in the angle for the U.S. Championship that Booker T won this night. So a fun little fact for you, which I thought was interesting. Moving on to the next Worker Bees title. Shoot, this is going faster than I thought because we're only at about 15 minutes. I think this is going to have to be a short. We have some have some time as the other show. Have till 5. So let's go to the Intercontinental Championship, which was first won by Pat Patterson back in 1979. Fun fact about the Intercontinental title at this point, it's a unified title. So Pat Patterson beat Ted DiBiase for the WWF North American Championship and Johnny Rhodes for the South American Heavyweight title. You want to know something fun about that? The South American Heavyweight title? Not a thing. This was a title that the WWF just made up. It doesn't exist. They made up this. What did they do? Pat Patterson went to South America and defeated Johnny Rhodes and brought back the South American Heavyweight title, but unifying them to make the Intercontinental Championship, which I think is absolutely hilarious and the most WWE thing to do. Is just make up a title so you can make this thing feel more prestigious. Now, of course, you know who has the longest Intercontinental Championship reign. It was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Honky Tonk Man, at 454. Now, another thing, who do you think has the most Intercontinental Championship reigns? Chris Jericho at 9. I was really thinking that they were going to have Miz break that record. The amount of prestige that he brought the Intercontinental Championship when he first won it on SmackDown. And this was like his big promo on Talking Smack and then his great angle with Dolph Ziggler. I thought like, okay, they're making him like one of the most important Intercontinental champions of all time. And it never happened. And I'm a little disappointed. Anyways, we're again in 2004 crowning the 100th Intercontinental Champion. It was at Vengeance, Randy Orton versus Edge. Not as much of a scramble as the 8-man elimination match, but who do you think has the honor of the 100th Intercontinental Championship reign? It would be the Rated R Superstar, and it's kind of unfortunate, to be honest. So he had the 100th reign that only lasted 2 months, and then he had to vacate it due to injury. I believe this was an ankle injury at this point. It was either the ankle or the neck. But no, he had to vacate it, and they had to find a new champion, which is a little upsetting. I'm very much a fan of Edge. Unfortunately, that came later in life. I didn't used to be a fan, but that's because I was like really invested in storylines, and he was a great person to hate. But in hindsight, I'm glad that he has another distinction of being the 100th Intercontinental Champion. And now, this is a story, man. At number 1 for We Have Till 5, the World Heavyweight Championship. Do you know how this title came to be in the WWF? That third W is because in the olden times, they weren't really good on punctuation. So, Buddy Rogers, as you well know, is the first technically WWE champion. He won the NWA title. This one's going to be like a little bit of a time jump. You may need a chart for this. So he won the NWA title against Pat O'Connor in 1961, and then 2 years later, he lost it. Now, Vince McMahon Sr. and his partner Toots Mondt, which is the most wrestler name of the 1970s that I've ever heard, Toots Mondt, they didn't like that Buddy Rogers lost the title. So what they did was on April 1963, they left and created the WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And he was given the title in 1963 after, again, a fictional tournament in Rio. They made up a tournament just so they can say, we're not giving him the title. No. He went off shores to where nobody has gone and wasn't advertised to this tournament. And you know what? He deserves this. And they give him the title. They made him the official champion. Again, the most WWE thing to do is make up a whole tournament just to say, no, he deserves it. He fought through 25 other men and is the champion. Now, the longest reign, I don't think I need to tell you. It's brought up pretty much anytime somebody holds the title for more than a year. It's Bruno Sammartino for 2,803 days. Now, here's a fun one. Remember Fatal 4-Way? Oh, I don't mean the match type. I mean the pay-per-view back in 2010. Isn't that interesting? How it took till 2010 for there to be the 100th world champion? I mean, guess with Bruno Sammartino holding it for just under 3,000 days, it's not incredibly surprising, but still, it took till 2010 at the pay-per-view Fatal 4-Way that gets the distinction of holding the 100th champion. Now, of course, this was a Fatal 4-Way match. It was John Cena, Randy Orton, Edge, and Sheamus, all four men completely deserving of this moniker. So who do you think was the 100th champion? You think it's John Cena? No, he walked in as champion. He lost his title that night. Edge? Randy Orton? Nope. Sheamus has the distinction of being the 100th World Heavyweight Champion. There was something I found interesting. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Sheamus, I don't know where I heard this, but Sheamus has the best career backwards. So let's kind of put it out. He's now a singles competitor with no angle, right? And then they put him into a bar with Cesaro and have a really successful run as both a heel and face tag team. Then he goes into the League of Nations as a stable to try and build up other talent. Doesn't work that well. Then he gets to have world title reigns, Royal Rumble winner. Like, if you think about it, Sheamus kind of did this stuff backwards. So if you give this a year, he's probably going to job out to somebody that we're going to discover years down the line. So it is a rather short episode of We Have Till 5, but you work with what you have, and I hope you found this as interesting as I did. The 100th champions in WWE history. But now I do have to actually get to work. My time is coming up when I got to do a little bit of actual labor. So thank you so much for joining us on We Have Till 5, part of the WrestleMedia Network. I hope you like how this episode sounded with all this professional grade equipment. You can help make most of our shows sound like this by helping out at our Patreon. Just look up WrestleMedia on Patreon. And you can help us by becoming a main event tier or a other tier, because the names I'm terrible with. Look at it, see what you can get. You get stuff for being a Patreon. You just got to choose which levels you want and which content you want to get with it. But thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week. Or what do we say? What do we say? Ah, crud. When it comes to the 100 WWE champions. Breaking the hold.
This has been a presentation of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything. Here's what you're missing out on right now over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.
I only want We Have Some Time to be 10 minutes, so what's one more thing to discuss? Oh, let me tell you about a cat's butthole.
Want more? Sign up now at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.